If the vacation strap and the bricks bag had a baby, it'll probably look like this. I know you guys really love those two patterns of mine, so I played around with it a little bit and came along with the new sling style. Let's look at all the details first. We do have a front pocket and a main compartment on the back main body. On the interior, you'll find a slip pocket and not an extra zipper pocket because this sling has plenty of zipper pockets. So let's check out the back next. You have two D-rings on the back so you can attach your strap to whatever side you like. A zipper pocket, of course, it's perfect for your cell phone, for example. And then on the strap itself, there are so many details. First, we have the hidden D-ring attachment. It's really easy and quick to make. You can attach your key rings, for example, everything with a swivel clasp. And this is a slim zipper pocket, and it should be pointing towards your center, your body center, not pointing outwards your body. You have a mini pocket here on the strap. No, it does not fit a cell phone, but it does fit your AirPods. So let's fill this back up and see how much will fit in there. And I'm really gonna stuff this thing full. So I do have a water bottle and a very large wallet. No problem for the main compartment. On the front pocket, I will add some cosmetics like maybe hand lotion, lip gloss, things like that. No problem as well. Then let's turn this baby around and put a cell phone here into this zipper pocket. Funny thing is, this is a really old iPhone. I know it's so retro, but I love it. But I tried to fit my bigger XR iPhone in there and it fit too, so no worries here. On the strap, the mini pocket will fit something like your earbuds, things like that, without a problem, or anything other small that you like, maybe lipstick or keys. And the slim zipper pocket here on this strap is really slim, so it's perfect for some cash, and it will fit credit cards, for example, just without problem, perfectly the size of a credit card. And here you can attach anything that has a swivel clasp, like I said before. Now that we've looked at all the details, I will walk you through this pattern step by step. And first we will start with preparing our pattern and our fabric pieces. First, you gotta print your pattern, so please download your file to a folder on your computer and open that file and choose the right format. And also make sure that you put the size on actual size or 100% because it usually gets scaled down. Then only print the pieces that you really need. You don't need to print out the whole pattern, of course, if you like to do so, but if you want to save some paper, just print the pages you need. When it comes to fabrics, I will show you what I have used. For my lining, I've used a lightweight cotton, a regular quilting cotton, and for my exterior I've used an outdoor fabric from Cotton Bee. It's like a waterproof canvas. When it comes to interfacing, my main interfacing is Decophyllite for the main pieces, and for the lining pieces I've used this G700 to give it more grip. When it comes to volume, I've used the HT160. It's quite similar to Pellon Thermolam, but not exactly, but you'll get volume with those fleeces. Check the pattern pieces, which fleece goes onto which part. Now let's look at all the other materials that we're gonna need to make this bag. So I suggest you get your laptop, iPad, anything you need, and you don't need to print this out. We do need some zipper tape, we do need bias tape, and as well as some webbing. When it comes to the hardware, I've used zipper pulls, slider, D-rings, and a square ring, as well as one rivet for the hidden D-ring attachment. Pattern piece C is kind of special because you can use the dotted lines to cut out your interfacings. So draw on the wrong side of the pattern and on the non-adhesive side of the interfacing. So the gap for the zipper should be on the right side on the finished bag, but on the wrong side, if you look at it, the gap will be on the left. So I've used Decophyllite first, and then on top I've used the volume fleece. When it comes to pattern piece G, it's kind of the same thing. We have a top and a bottom. The bottom will be fused without a gap and with the volume fleece on top. The top will be just a Decophyllite, and the gap will be on the center of your body when you carry your bag on your left shoulder. So I hope that makes sense. I hope it's clear. Draw on the Decophyllite on the side which is non-adhesive, okay, with the pattern piece on the wrong side. Everything will be explained on page 7 as well. On page 7 you also find the link for the video tutorial. The first part is probably the most complicated part, which is the strap, and it will take quite a while. So here you can see all the pieces that we need to sew the strap. So we first will make the mini pocket. Therefore, take your mini pocket gusset piece, the zipper, and the main and lining piece, and the zipper should be 26 centimeters long, and you will sandwich it in between of the gusset piece. Align the short ends and sew this edge with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Repeat on the other edge as well. The zipper is on the center and the main fabric goes right side on the zipper, right sides together, and the lining will go on the bottom, so the zipper is sandwiched in between. So this short end with 1 centimeter 3/8 inch seam allowance as well. Then put your fabrics wrong sides together, top stitch and baste together those fabric pieces in one step. Mark the centers on your gusset piece as well as on the mini pocket pieces, main and lining. So we will attach the gusset to the mini pocket main piece first. Usually I would bind this mini pocket, and I tried this when prototyping, but it kind of was too small and it looked better when this is used the birthing method. So we will attach this with the zipper closing towards the left, right sides together. So first align the top and the center, right sides together, and then use some clips to secure the gusset on the main fabric piece along all the edges, and it's a bit easier if you make small snips into the gusset where it's above the curvy section of the mini pocket piece. But be aware that some zippers tend to fray easily, so make sure you have a zipper that can be cut. Then attach this gusset with 7mm seam allowance, and as you can see, I've basted first and then sewed a second round with the correct seam allowance, which is really a suggestion. Don't skip the basting because this is a small piece, it's kind of hard to attach. Next, put the lining fabric right sides together with the main fabric, and then we will sew this together with 7mm seam allowance as well. Just leave an opening here on the bottom to turn the mini pocket right side out, and I've started just before the curves. So next, trimming the curvy section here is not okay with all fabric types and zipper types. So if you have fabric that frays kind of easily and zipper that frays easily, I do not suggest you to trim the seam allowance. Next, you will turn the mini pocket right side out. Use a tool to poke out all the corners and everything, and then fold the seam allowance from the opening from the lining fabric inwards so it's covering the stitches. Use a needle to secure it so that it will stay in place, and then top stitch on the main fabric piece. By top stitching, the opening will close automatically. Next, we will attach this mini pocket to the front of the strap. So the one with the volume fleece is the back, and the one with the gap in the deco for light is the front. So we will mark 2 lines on this front G piece. One is 4 centimeters from the bottom, which is 1.5 in inches, and the next one is 7 centimeters from the first marking. Don't forget to mark the center because we want to put this on there centered. So excuse me. Mark the center, then make a second marking. It's 7 centimeters, 2 3/4 from the first marking. And also mark the center here. Now we will stitch the mini pocket onto the G piece, and I will take you to my sewing machine to show you how I do it because I will not secure it first. So we will align the centers like this, but let me show you on my sewing machine. See, there's the bottom line and the center marking, and we will align the center marking to the marking on the bottom line, and then we will baste close to the edge, start in the center somewhere, and go along by aligning the edge to the line that you've drawn. Then when you get to the end, stop like 5 millimeters before the end, 1/4 inch. Just eyeball it. It's not as important to be this exact. It needs to be disappearing in the seam allowance later. And then top stitch upwards 1 or 2 stitches so that you have a seam allowance of 7 millimeters, so 1/4 inch to the edge, and then sew back towards the other end. And again, you will stop shortly before the edge, about 1/4 inch, 5 millimeter before the end. Stitch back down, and like that you've sewn a rectangle to secure the bottom edge of the mini pocket to the bottom marking line. So if you like to, you can leave this like that, but if you do like a more polished look and don't want any open edges, raw edges and stitching like this, just take a bias tape and make a 4 folds, so 4 layers are above it, and place it on top of the raw edge and the stitches, and then sew another rectangle just the same way that we did before. And like this you would have like a more cleaner look. Again, don't stitch down all the way to the end. Stop about 5 millimeters, 1/4 inch on both edges, and like this you have covered all the mess from basting. Next, we will repeat the same technique with the raw edge of the zipper, so the top of the mini pocket. We will attach it aligned by the top marking. So make sure the zipper is right side down on the center, aligned by the center of the line, and the zipper is open, of course, otherwise you couldn't sew this. And fold the back, the mini pocket itself, out of the way. Again, start close to the edge, align the centers, and then stitch until you get like 5 millimeters almost to the edge. Stitch upwards. This time I decided to stitch upwards, just 1 stitch, so oh sorry, the camera's in the way. And then go back and then 1 stitch down and back until you have sewn a rectangle. It's the same thing that we've just did. It's just a bit harder because the pocket is pulling, so it's kind of hard to keep everything straight and in place, but you're the boss. You just force the pocket to stay in its place, and then take a piece of bias tape again and cover it. Make sure that you place it on there centered as well, or if you have a longer piece, just that the ends are standing over, that's fine. We will trim off the ends of the bias tape right afterwards. Okay, let's look at it in detail. You see we have everything covered, and then we trim off anything next to the stitches, so just the extra bias tape, just trim it, cut it off, and then we will align our pocket to the side edges. Close the zipper and check again if you like the fit, and then use clips to align the side edges of the zipper tape and the G piece, and then baste the pocket in place. So this was quite hard, but you've got this, and the more you practice, the better and the easier this will go. Next, we will make the slim zipper pocket. So place the facing from the zipper pocket above the gap, right sides together. So center it above the gap of the decoupage. Use some clips and then sew along the edge of the decoupage like a U shape. Then take some scissors and make some cuts right into the corner of the gap. The gap. Cut as close into the corner as you can without cutting into the seam, and then put the fabric towards the back of the G piece and give it a press. So shape all the corners and edges for a nice finish. Next, take a zipper piece and place it on the lining from the strap zipper like this. So the zipper will close upwards, and it will be attached on the right side of the piece with 7mm seam allowance. So then you fold the fabric away from the zipper, so the zipper is right side up and the fabric is wrong side up, and then place the gap above the zipper. Align it to the sides of the facing, and then make sure everything sits nicely in place, and then top stitch both pieces together like this. Next, you will take the second lining piece and place it on the other one right sides together, but align it on the zipper. Then you will sew the sides, and if you like to, you could also baste the zipper edge to the lining piece. You don't need to close this edge. We will trim this off. If you like to close, this is the basting, but some of my testers said they would prefer it to baste this together. I think differently, so we are all different, so I like to keep this edge open, but if you like to, you can top stitch the lining pieces together. Next, we will make the hidden D-ring. So make a marking 25 centimeters, 9.5 inches from the top on the wrong side of the fabric. So this marking should be 2 centimeters wide, 3/4 of an inch, and it should be centered. So find the center and then make a marking centered about 2 centimeters. Now we need to cut this passage that we've marked. This is tricky with a rotary cutter, so you can only make a small slit, but use some small scissors to cut into the ends of the marking, because we don't want to make this cut too big. And now we will take the old piece and put it right sides together and slide it through from the bottom to the top, about 1 centimeter standing over, 3/8 inches standing out on the wrong side. And then we will make stitches. We stitch the pieces together. It's important that your stitches stay on the tab. Do not stitch above the tab. So then you will put the tab through the hole to the back of the G piece. And next we will need the P tab, and we will prepare it by marking the center line, folding the long edges towards the center, and then top stitch like you usually would top stitch like a D-ring tab. It's the same thing. Next we will place this right sides together on this and push it through the slit from top to bottom this time. Again, about 1 centimeter, 3/8 inch. You don't need to measure it, you can eyeball this. Now we will stitch this tab on the G piece in the same way. We stitch on the tab only above the slit, like 1 millimeter above the slit, and then put a D-ring on and thread the end of the tab through the slit as well. Now, you decide how tight you want your D-ring to sit. Don't make it too tight, because that can be like a bit wavy. Then we don't want this. So give it just a wiggle, and then you have your D-ring in your tab. I will sew together the ends of the tab first, and then insert a rivet through the G piece and through all the tabs. So make a marking where you like your rivet to sit, and then punch a hole and install your rivet. So the next step is the attachment for the squaring, where we attach our webbing later. Therefore, you need to place it on top of your strap. So take an 8 centimeter long piece of webbing, 3 inches, and thread a squaring on it. And let the short ends meet at the back, like this. Use a clip to secure this, and then make a marking on the G piece 5 centimeters, 2 inches from the top. Also mark the center and where this should be placed, because you want to align this centered. Mine was a tiny bit too long, so I trimmed off a little bit, and then just repeatedly fold the short ends together, let them meet behind the tab or strap, or you know what I mean. So you will top stitch this with an X box, and you don't see the opening because it's on the back. It's like hidden. You get what I mean, right? Okay. So the front is done now, and now we have to sew this together with the back piece. Therefore, place the 2 G pieces right sides together and sew along as I show here, and leave a huge opening like this. So first, push down the zipper. Make sure that the bottoms really align, because the mini zipper pocket might be disturbing. So it's hard to lay this flat. Also put the squaring out of the way so you can sew along this edge. We'll use a seam allowance of 7 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch, and we will start here and go around the first curve and then stop right there. I've basted the pieces together first and then sew with the correct seam allowance. Now you can check if you got all the edges correctly in the seam allowance, and then push down the mini pocket, force it down even though it's resisting, and then we will stitch this part where the mini pocket is, like slightly above the mini pocket from here to the bottom, with 7mm seam allowance, and we leave an opening this huge. See, I've only stitched this part in the same way. I've basted it first and then used the correct seam allowance. So this is the second hard part of this pattern. The mini pocket, to make it and attach it, is kind of hard, and also to turn this right side out. I mean, we left a huge opening and the top curve is easy, but this is quite bulky, so it can be hard to push this through the opening. So take your time. If you use vinyl, maybe heat it up a little bit. Like if you have a blow dryer, you can heat up your vinyl a little bit and then push it through when it's warm, because it's more flexible like this. But with cotton or waterproof canvas, it should be fine. It just takes some time and some patience. So use something to help you push this through there, and then you can see your strap almost being done like that. So now we have to close the large opening and top stitch the strap in one step. Therefore, I fold the seam allowance inwards, and I use the Deco-Fill Light as a guide on where to place the seam allowance over the edge. Then I turn the piece around and do the same with the front of the strap, including the lining from the zipper pocket. Simply fold it over and then use the clip from the bottom piece and check again in the end if everything aligns nicely, and then we can top stitch everything together. So what you can do is you can top stitch including the zipper. Therefore you would have to pay attention not to stitch into the coil so that your stitching is not in the way, or you can just leave the zipper out. That's what I did, but both is possible. So when you've top stitched, close this with the basting stitch here in the bottom. If you want to, you can top stitch here too, but it's kind of hard because of the bulk of the mini pocket, so it's not a must. So this is how the strap looks, and we can move on to making the front. Here you can see all the pieces that we'll need for the front, and we will start with the front pocket. Therefore we need a zipper. It's 13 inches long, 33 centimeters 0.5, and we'll sandwich this in the gusset like we did before with the mini pocket, this time just with the front pocket gusset pieces, and sew the short ends with 1 centimeter 3/8 inch seam allowance. So the zipper and the main fabric pieces are right side together, and the lining is on top, being the bottom of the sandwich. Then you turn this like this, so the fabrics are wrong sides together, and top stitch the side edges and baste together the long edges as well. So what I did again is I've attached the bias tape. If you have been sewing my patterns, you've probably seen this before. If you're new to this technique, you can also check out the binding tutorial video on YouTube. You find the link on page 7 as well. So now I find the edge that will be attached to the front pocket, and this is the edge that I will attach my bias to. So the zipper is closing towards the left, and then I baste on my bias tape like that before I sew this piece on the front pocket piece. See, this is how it's looking how it looks when it's finished, and now we can attach it to the front pocket. So mark all the centers on your gusset as well as on the front pocket piece, and then align it right sides together with the zipper closing towards the left. And I start with aligning the top center first, then the bottom center, and then I work my way around the whole piece with clips and I'll make small snips into the gusset where it's above the curves. But first we need to baste together the front pocket main and lining pieces, wrong sides together, and now we can attach the gusset. Like I said, the zipper is closing towards the left. Align the top first, then the bottom, and then work your way around the whole piece. I recommend you baste this together first and then sew with the correct seam allowance of 7mm, which is 1/4 inch. See, basting stitch and the correct seam allowance. If you've attached bias like I did, you can simply fold it towards the raw edge and fold over again, secure with clips and top stitch, and your binding is done. If you like to do this the traditional way, now's the time to bind the raw edges. Looking good. Now I check if everything's correct, there's no gaps, and I massage the zipper over the bias tape. Need to push it into the right place, but we will do this a couple times, especially when the back is done, to make sure the zipper stays over the bias tape. So this is the hard part number 3 of making the Slingfinity. We have to attach this to the top piece. So mark the centers on the bottom and the top, and also make small slits in the curvy section. Now we will align this like right sides together with the zipper aligned by the center markings, and I'll take you to the sewing machine and show you how I attach this. So I start in the center and work my way towards the side edge, and first I baste. It's a lot easier to baste this first, especially at these pointy ends of the top piece, but don't pay too much attention to the tiny pointed edges, because they will disappear in the seam allowance later. So I work my way until I get to the curve, and then I will make the piece on the bottom, the top, our main fabric. I will fold it up so it's aligned with the zipper. See, I push it to the side like that the edges are aligned, and then I'll keep on basting as far as I can go. Go slow, take your time, and don't be too hard on yourself. You could also use a tool like this, I don't know the word for it, it's like a pointy tool. I use it to poke holes for marking rivets. What's the name? I don't know the name. Okay, then we will start at the center again and sew our way to the other edge in the same way by basting the two pieces together. So it's basically the same thing. We sew until we get to the curve, and then we'll put the main fabric piece and align it with the zipper by sliding it towards the right. See, we fold this up too, so the raw edges are above each other. So when you've basted the zipper on the top piece, we need to sew this with the correct seam allowance next, which is 7mm. And I will start at the center again, just with the correct seam allowance now. And when you get to the side edge, you can slowly curve this inwards, reducing the seam allowance slightly. See, we start with 7mm, a quarter of an inch seam allowance. And now it's a lot easier because they are right, the pieces stay together because we've basted them. And when you get to the end, reduce the seam allowance slightly, like shown here in the video. I reduce it until I meet this point right there. Now start at the center again and work your way to the other edge in the same way. Start with the correct seam allowance and then just slightly reduce the seam allowance. Like I said, don't pay too much attention to this pointy thing fabric strip because it will disappear in the seam allowance. So this is how the piece looks. And now I will check my zipper if it closes correctly and sits nicely, because this is a good last chance to make any corrections on this part. And then I will take one back lining piece right side up and put the assembled front right side up as well on top. So mark the centers so you can align them perfectly. Both pieces are right side up, and use some clips to align the markings and all the outer edges. Make some small snips in the front piece, in the gusset of the front pocket where it's above the curve, for an easier fit. And we won't baste together the whole piece, we just baste together the bottom first, because we don't want the seam allowance from the zipper being caught in the basting stitches, because the seam allowance from the zipper will be folded upwards, so you can see this later. So start here and end here. Here, go around the bottom and here without sewing the top yet. We will do this afterwards. So you see I've basted, and now open up the pocket and push the seam allowance upwards so it's disappearing underneath the top, and then top stitch the zipper like this onto the lining piece. So like this, all the stitches is invisible. See, this is the edge here. It's a bit bumpy, but we will make sure it's not visible later because it will be in the seam allowance. Now the top is still open, but before we baste this together, we can take the second C lining piece, put it wrong sides together with the other lining piece, and then baste around the whole piece, all the outer edges, baste it all together. So then the top will be basted in this step as well. And now the front is done. Okay, so when you've succeeded here, you've already did all the hard parts. The gusset is quite easy. See, these are the things that we need. We need all the gusset fabric pieces and a zipper, which is 36.5 centimeters, 14¾ of an inch, basically the same length as the gusset zipper piece. So we place the zipper with 2 zipper pulls attached, right side together with the main fabric, and put the lining on top. And then we sew this edge with 7mm seam allowance. And then I've already folded the fabrics wrong sides together and top stitched and forgot to film this, but we will do this. I will show you this with the second piece. So the other edge is sewn exactly the same way. The fabrics will be folded wrong sides together like this, and then top stitched. And now you have the zipper part of your gusset done. Next we take the bottom The main piece goes right sides together with the main fabrics of the zipper gusset, and the lining is right sides together with the lining of the zipper gusset. Again, a sandwich. So align the short ends and sew both short ends with 1 cm 3/8" seam allowance. Next, turn the piece so the fabric from the bottom pieces are wrong sides together, top stitch and baste together the side edges as well. If you attach your bias like we did before to both edges like me, you can do the basting. This is basically just one step. So I've attached the bias tape to both edges, and if you don't like to do this, of course you can do this later the traditional way. So mark the center on your gusset and then set it aside because the gusset is done already. That was quick. Next we will make the back. So the back requires some more pieces, and we will first make the zipper pocket. So see, there's the gap. It will be on the right when it's the right side up. So place the facing over the gap. It's the same way, the same thing we did with the strap. So with the two pieces right side together and aligned by the center, simply stitch them together by sewing right next to the interfacing. Then cut 2 slits into the corners like that, as close into the corner as possible without cutting into the seam. Then fold the fabric to the back, shape the corners and edges, and give it a press. Next, prepare the zipper. Therefore, place the back zipper lining piece right side up in front of you and a 15 cm 6" long zipper piece on the left side edge right side up as well, closing towards the top. Then fold the fabric away from the zipper and place the gap in the back piece above the zipper. Align it by the side edges of the facing and the lining piece. Now stitch the two pieces together by top stitching around the zipper. So turn the piece over, take the second lining piece and place it right sides together with the first one, but this time aligned with the zipper edge. Trim off the extra strip on the side and then sew together the side and the bottom edges. If you like to, you could also baste the zipper on the lining. Trim off any extra zipper because my zipper was slightly longer than 15 centimeters. Next we'll make the slip pocket. Therefore place the slip pocket pieces right sides together, sew them with 1 cm seam allowance but leave an opening in the bottom edge. Trim the corners and then turn the slip pocket right side out. Shape the corners and edges and give it a press as well. Then fold the seam allowance inwards and top stitch the top edge. The opening, the seam allowance from the opening, this will be the bottom edge. See, we fold it inwards and give it a press and then top stitch right here. I've also added a label. This is the opening. And now you can place it on the third C lining piece, centered and 4 centimeters from the bottom. And then stitch it on by stitching the side and bottom edges. Now place the two pieces wrong sides together and baste them together. The centers are marked, and next we will attach 2 D-rings. Therefore you need to prepare the 2 left tabs. These are the P tabs. Mark the center and then fold the raw edges towards the center and top stitch. Now thread a D-ring on each tab, with the open edge being in the center, being invisible like that. Use a clip to keep this in place, and then place it on the bottom of your back piece, about 2 centimeters, 3/4 of an inch from the bottom edge. And it's better if it's not straight like that, if you put this on an angle so it won't get caught in your stitching later. I'll show you. Just like, well, this was too high. See, I put this on an angle slightly so the tabs are looking upwards a little bit. Then it's easier to not have them caught in the stitching. And then baste this together and trim off any extra on the bottom. I've left it standing, I had it standing over the edge for 1 centimeter, 3/8 inch. Then you take the assembled strap and place this right side up on the right side of your C-piece, aligned at the top edge, centered, and baste it together. So the back is done, and now it's time for final assembly. So these are the 3 pieces that we have, and make sure all the centers are marked on the gusset, on the front and on the back, and we will attach the gusset to the front first. Open up the zipper halfway like this, open up the zipper of the gusset as well, and align the top center markings first, then the bottom center markings. Make some snips into the gusset where it's above the curve. You can push the curves here, the edges, push them inwards so they're not in your way, and then attach the whole gusset aligned by all outer edges with some clips. Baste together first, and then sew with 7mm seam allowance, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Next, since we've attached the bias already, we just need to fold the bias over the raw edge. But before you do, check if the darts here, if anything, everything is hidden in the seam allowance correctly here, where the top meets the zipper, right there. This is important because now you can make some corrections. This looks perfect, fine, okay. We can fold the bias tape over the edge and bind the edge, the raw edges here. If you didn't attach the bias tape to the gusset, now you would have to bind the edge. Next, we will attach the back in the same way. The only thing is, keep the strap folded together that it doesn't get caught in any stitching. Make snips again where the curves are, and then baste together first, and then sew with 7mm seam allowance, and close the bias. No, finish the raw edges with bias in the same way that you did after connecting the front to the gusset. Okay, best moment, seeing the back for the first time. If you've seen more of my videos, I say the same thing every time when I get to this point. Okay, turn your back right side out, shape all the edges and corners and give it a push and a press just to let the back find its correct shape. So now we'll have to attach the webbing. So take an 85cm piece of webbing, 34 inches long, and thread a slider on one end, make like a double fold, and stitch it together. Now we thread the other end through the D-ring. So the folded edge is upwards right here, and you fold it, you thread it from the bottom to the top through the squaring and then through the slider again, and then like this attach the swivel clasp to the end, make double fold again and stitch together, and then your masterpiece is done. You can be really proud of yourself. This was a hard make, but you did it. You did a great job. I hope you like my instruction, my video, and my patterns. Come meet us on Facebook on Social Bag Makers, and let's make plenty of more bags together, because this is truly addictive. See you again. Bye.